got 5 kids to raise.
Hello and welcome to another episode of CF3 TV on Project Nerd. I'm Dane Michael.
And I'm Dames Marvs.
And Dames?
Yes.
Is this SETI Alpha 5 or 6 that we're on right now?
6.
On this planet that we're currently on, we had the chance to interview Laura Banks, the navigator for Khan himself, in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Laura was a fantastic interview, and so we're going to take you to that interview with her right now. Thank you for joining us, Laura. We wanted to start off by talking about 1982's Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. And can you tell us a little bit about how you wound up landing the role as the navigator for Khan in the film?
I most certainly can, and thank you for having me on your show. I'm happy to be here. I was a young actress in Hollywood, from Kansas City to Hollywood, and reading a rag there called Dramalog. And Dramalog is like the Variety to New York City. So in New York, it's Backstage. In LA, it's Variety and the Hollywood Reporter. And then if you want to get cast as something, if you're an actor looking for work, you get Dramalog. I don't know if Dramalog's still around. Is it? I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, look it up, Dramalog. And so they had a big display ad in the back. Major motion picture. They wouldn't say the movie because I think everybody would have flooded, right? Maybe. Central casting, 5'11". My measurements pretty much describe me. You couldn't have gotten closer to a description of me. And I can't get to the phone fast enough, and I'm dialing them up. I go, you guys just described me in this ad here. They went, all right, get down to Central Casting. We'll take a look at you. So I got in my car and I got to Sunset Boulevard and ran up there, and Central Casting took a look, and they went, yep, okay, you're going to Paramount Studios, this entrance, knock yourself out. Good luck. You're going to meet the director and a couple of other people. So I am very excited. I hadn't gotten a break or a role in anything at that point, and was studying acting and had discovered comedy in San Diego at that point with Whoopi Goldberg. We had an improv comedy troupe and had gone from San Diego to LA to do some improv comedy, sketch comedy at the Comedy Store in LA. And that was really my life, was the Comedy Store. And it was where everything was happening, and all the comics were up and coming, and Leno and Crystal and Letterman, who I asked out on a date. And so my whole life was really this comedy club. And I started doing stand-up, and then I fell into improv, and had a job at a boiler room making calls for cable TV subscriptions. And went to actually, after Central Casting said you're a maybe, then I think I went back to work. And then the next day I was in the room making phone call after phone call. Would you like this television package? And the main guy in the front goes, is there Laura Banks in this room? Well, get up here. You got to call, make it quick. And I run up to the front of the room and I get a call, and it's like, it's Paramount Pictures. We want you for this movie. Can you get over here now to wardrobe? I'm like, oh. So yes. And then I hung the phone down. I remember the whole room. I went, and I quit, and I threw
yes.
one of those moments. And so I forget the exact word, but anyway, I had to go over and say hi to Nick Meyer. I think he had to give me the final nod, but I pretty much had decided I was it. And I replaced an actress by the name of Lana Clarkson, who was supposed to get the role. I don't know if you know the story of Lana. She started in about 17 B films and was supposed to get the part I got. She was killed by Phil Spector. She was the blonde.
Oh, that's right. I knew I heard the name somewhere before.
Yeah, and we were friends, and it was just awful because she was getting into comedy when he killed her. I'm so glad he's in prison. And so I went over to Paramount, and they had my name at the gate. I thought, oh my God, Paramount has my name at the gate. Anyway, I parked my car and I went in and I met Nick. And the set, I still didn't know what movie I was going to be in, but I just saw a bunch of bridges and kind of metal looking, and couldn't figure out still what this was all about. And Nick met me and we spoke for a while, and he goes, yeah, you're great. I like you a lot. You're fine. You'll do. And so then it was basically, they grabbed me, they got me over to wardrobe. They fit me in the big outfit that you find is first on the planet, and then the other accoutrement that I ended up in. And it was an extra role that kept getting moved forward. They kept eliminating a lot of us and keeping only me and Nancy and 4 other guys. And later I asked Nick, I said, I guess I had the look you wanted for the part. And he goes, no, he goes, it was your work. It was who you were. In fact, he had to pay a fine to use me because I wasn't in a guild or a union at that point, and the girl fought it, another woman who was, and he had to fight, and he said, no, you were who I wanted. And I had one line, course plot to intercept Enterprise ready, sir. And I was, and like Joaquin Phoenix, I did not get a credit in the movie. And yeah, so I got the part in a magazine, and then I found myself on set for a month. It was great.
So 5'11" is tall, and you said that was listed as one of the requirements, not requirements, but one of the things they were looking for. Was there any specific reason given to you that they were looking for height?
Well, it was a requirement. Well, first of all, the character when Gene first wrote it, and I don't know if it was in Space Seed, but we're super genetically engineered, right? People. We're from like a tribe of, I don't want to say Aryan, but very, very, super duper people. So the guys were 6'4", and not only was that part of the character, because all of us were very tall. There was about 14 of us extras when we started on the Alpha Ceti 5 and UCS. But Lana Clarkson had already been fitted, so I had to fit into Lana's outfit.
Oh.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
And you did. But what was your knowledge of Star Trek? So you found out, obviously, when you were already on the set that it was Star Trek. Did you have any knowledge, or were you a fan of the show or anything like that?
I knew of the show, but I was not a fan. Not like I became a fan.
Okay. Well, that was going to be my next question, is because some people are, just casting things and they have a hard time seeing these films on the same level as like an actual fan. But would you say that you have become a fan of the Star Trek franchise, and like, do you enjoy watching these movies? And
Shane, it's more than a fan. It's like, it is in my blood now. It's my life. I toured with these guys. I introduced Gene Roddenberry on a Sea Trek cruise and hung out with Walter and George. And, it's the story I tell of my life. I went on and did action pictures and wrote books and, all this other cool stuff I've done. I had a TV series on the Sci-Fi Channel where I interviewed Carl Sagan and all these cool things I've done. My book was a bestseller, but this is the thing people want to talk about. It is in my blood now. I do not know if I will ever experience it on the level that fans of me or fans of the show will, just because it's so in your blood and you guys are all so well versed in every piece of knowledge about it. There's a level that I never dipped into, but because it's so much a part of my life and I got to know so many of the people in the show, I'm looking here, that it became a part of my life. In fact, I'm wearing the pin that
Nice.
Nick Meyer gave everyone on set when we had a birthday party in his honor. In fact, we just went into an in-depth interview about this. There's a book coming out in 2021 with the 40th anniversary of Star Trek II. Paramount Publishing interviewed me for a book that's coming out, and a documentary is coming out also. So lots going on next year. And I got Sean Young in the documentary because I just finished working with her on a movie here. I got her in for Blade Runner because in 1982, Blade Runner came out, Star Trek II came out. What else came out? You guys know?
E.T., Gandhi.
Yep. Yes. And Poltergeist.
Poltergeist, yep.
Right.
Yep.
So it was a stellar year.
Ricardo Montalban. Were you familiar with him
Ricardo.
and his work prior to entering the set?
Yeah, he was a little older than me, Dane. He was a matinee idol who hurt his back on a horse, right? Wonderful gentleman, kind and gracious, and a work ethic. He hurt his back very, very, very much so in an earlier TV movie. And when they yell action, you wouldn't know he was hurting. He would do any stunt. When he was dying, and they put a special kind of gel they hadn't used before on anybody in Star Trek II. That was very movable and mobile, and somehow, I don't know, because everything was under budget, everything was on the fly, and I think they were making discoveries, about things the way Roger Corman, the guy who discovered me, did. But Ricardo Montalban had a real work ethic, and when he was all scarred up and dying and rolling around on the bridge there, he was just a trooper. I'll never forget that, beyond belief. I learned a lot, just work ethic and commitment.
Excellent.
And a good person. And he's Spanish, and I'm a quarter Spanish. And I always wondered, did they pair us up because maybe they didn't know that, but they realized
They saw
were.
something. What a lovely interview with the lovely woman, Laura Banks. Am I right, Dames Mars?
She's amazing. Yes.
Okay, well, we're going to proceed with the Star Trek II review, and so I'm going to read this very brief synopsis that I found on IMDb TV. With the assistance of the Enterprise crew, Admiral Kirk must stop an old nemesis, Khan Noonien Singh, from using the life-generating Genesis device as the ultimate weapon. This is Star Trek II from 1982, directed by one Nicholas Meyer. Tell me one fact that you know about Star Trek II, just off the top of your head.
Off the top of my head, Kirstie Alley. This was not the first ship she would lead into a trashy mess where everybody dies.
Come again?
Every other show she's ever done is basically what I'm referencing.
Oh, you know what? Like, I had always had memories of like watching Cheers episodes back in the day. Yeah. I'd always had memories of her being like vastly superior to Shelley Long. But in rewatching it this past year, entire series with Katie, we were like very annoyed by Diane Chambers. But then when it came to Rebecca's stint on the show, she is so pathetic. Like, her character is absolutely pathetic that it was like way more annoying than anything Diane Chambers, who was actually like capable and like goal oriented and you know, stuff like that. Like, I just wanted to slap Rebecca at the end of the series, dude. I did not care about her.
So you're a coach and Diane? Coach and
I
Diane?
love Coach, but I mean, you can't. It's hard to say that Woody's like.
Well, you have to pick an era. You have to pick an era.
No, my era would be they should have matched Woody and Diane for longer because they did have crossover. We've arrived at the what do you call it? The Kobayashi
Yes.
Maru. There's a no-win scenario that you just presented me with for Cheers, but I said I need Diane and Woody. So in effect, I am Admiral Kirk.
That's
Captain
right.
Kirk. Because I don't believe in no-win scenarios. Is that still one of like the greatest moments of any Star Trek like show, movie, whatever, when he explains cheating to beat the Kobayashi?
Absolutely. You have the hero of the entire franchise, like copping to a falsehood. That's amazing.
And that's why I think that's why a lot of people's favorite part of the well-received J.J. Abrams film reboot was that they actually showed Kirk beating that as a young man. This movie, Dames, I don't know if you remember this, but when we were kids, like, I was incredibly frightened by the scene with the I don't know what these little worm things are called, but it's the only indigenous life form on SETI Alpha 5, according to Khan. And they've got these little portioned off train ones, and they just go in your ear and make you susceptible.
Dane, I do remember that because I knew that's exactly what you were going to say. I knew because that's like the most terrifying part of this whole movie to me is that little section.
And poor Chekhov, he's the one, along with Captain Terrell, obviously, who, rest in peace, man, doesn't survive it. But Chekhov was the only one, I think, of the regular crew who wasn't in the original Star Trek episode that had Khan. And so this is what they do to him.
Right. They basically make him a red shirt.
Wait a minute. Everybody's a red shirt in this. And I want to talk about that, too.
I do, too. But
these uniforms are crap, dude. They look like something you'd be gallivanting around the North Pole in.
I know. It looks like a bunch of shitty Santa suits is what I thought.
Exactly. Like, and they turn you all into red suits, which does one thing. It ruins the mythology of the series, but it also makes it unpredictable. If everybody's a red shirt, then anybody could die. And in fact, they killed off one of the franchise's most beloved characters, Spock, in this. And that's the one other thing that I have like deep memories of, is the end of this movie when he's dying and falling down in the chamber. Radiation poisoning. I don't know, because I was 1 when this came out. There was no, for me, there was no wait to see if he ever comes back to life, because I instantly had the search for Spock at my disposal.
Right. I mean, but here's the thing, dude. I would have loved for them to have the internet back then when they did that.
Oh God.
It would have killed the internet when you killed Spock, and you didn't bring him back in that same movie. And of course, everybody knows Spock survived. He comes back in the next film.
Right, but I think that he actually didn't want to do the second movie because the first one was pretty poorly received, especially by critics. I mean, I'm sure it made enough money or they wouldn't have even bothered making a part 2. But it was poorly received, and yes, if you're looking back, if I were to suggest somebody to get into Star Trek other than watching the original series episodes, and even some of those you could just pick a handful because continuity be damned, but I would just tell them the only things you really need to watch before the TV shows or the Next Generation or anything like that would be 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
And for 2, they were honestly retiring or whatever. He had become an admiral. He didn't want to captain a ship or be having these crazy adventures. But 2 cemented the series as brought back for forever, I think.
Well, they had to, because they pigeonholed themselves into a spot with Spock where, internet or not, people were going nuts. They couldn't just leave it that way. And it was such a great story that they're like, we have to do at least 2 more because people will kill us if we don't.
Yeah, and how cool was Star Trek? This was before still in 1982 and still in 2002, people didn't necessarily think that casts or anything had to be diverse. But Star Trek was the original TV show basically that fought for diversity. You had Nichelle Nichols' first interracial kiss in the original Star Trek series. But then here you've got a black captain. You've got Kirstie Alley being trained to be a female captain. They were continuing the progressiveness.
That's a really good point. Nobody can fault this series or even make the remark that it's not one of the most diverse things we've ever had in our culture.
Yeah, because then later you'd have captains like Sisko and Janeway, all being set up by this movie, I think. But I don't want to waste too much of everybody's time talking about the details. You guys all know this movie. Laura Banks was kind enough to submit a score for the Cult Filmometer, and here that is. We have a feature on our show called the Cult Filmometer, and we ask everybody to rate the films on a scale of 0 to 100. And we always ask the guests to participate in that. And we take the average of the scores for our final score. So Dames and I will be giving a score later after you're gone for our Star Trek 2 review. But we would like you to give us a rating between 0 and 100 for this. You can take it as a cult classic or in terms of the experience for you, so on and so forth. There's no wrong answer.
ST2, 99.5.
Yes.
Now, why that 5? I just don't want to look too egotistical about the whole thing. But clearly, Montalban is one of the greatest villains of all time. What Nick Meyer did on a short budget, saving the franchise the way he did, fighting Paramount every day the way he did, the story of the people, the pathos, the loss of Nimoy, the Spock, the really just doing a 180 on what Rory had done in 1, which was focus on the ship itself and taking it to being about the people and the pathos and the loss. I just think everybody in it was brilliant. I think it was just a brilliant, heroic film.
And it saved the franchise, I think.
Yeah,
It did.
It did.
Yeah,
And
I
for
remember
that-
looking. Sorry, I remember looking at the budget for this and thinking, what were they thinking? There's just over what 10 million, like 12 million at the most.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not chump change, but I mean, certainly to make the franchise
That's
warranted
nothing.
much more.
At that point, James, it was the #1 grossing movie of all time when it came out in 1982, and it was the first movie to go to VHS, and they sold it for $19.95 a copy or something like that, and they sold 64,000 copies, and it was one of the first movies ever to get a release in VHS, and I was on the box cover for that, so that was kind of fun. It's a historical moment. Before that, it would cost you $300 to $400 to take a movie home.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they were breaking ground right and left with this movie.
Gosh.
And that was another thing Paramount did was, hey, let's try and sell this as a VHS.
Let's price it to own for once.
Yeah.
Well, that is awesome. And because it saved the Star Trek franchise, you could give it a full 100 without appearing egotistical, but we'll accept your 99.5.
Well, the 0.5 is because they were under budget. They wouldn't give me the credit or the money I probably would have deserved in royalties, which is, it's disappointing, but the whole thing was so great that.
Hopefully you've been able to spin that into some convention appearances and
oh yeah.
Hopefully
the other 3 movie roles I got were because of Star Trek. So
okay.
I'm sure that when you're signing pictures, the picture, everyone knows. We'll get it in post. The picture of you with Khan. I'm sure that's what everybody wants signed.
Oh yeah, I've signed that.
You're like in perpetuity. I've signed that photo.
Oh yes, indeed. And they're selling. Somebody's making a lot of money with it on eBay. Not me. Every day I see someone $50, Laura's autograph. I'm like, well, that's not me. Said sign that one, but.
And they've got the certificate of authenticity and everything, but
Yeah.
Okay,
so don't buy any Laura Banks autograph pictures, people, unless they're from her.
This is not my favorite Star Trek movie. You know that mine is the one where they're tracking down the whales. I will always love that movie, just because it's so ridiculous that they're on Earth, and I never thought that I would see that. And most people probably didn't think they would see that.
The Voyage Home.
The Voyage Home. But it's great. But this is probably my second favorite. And then The Search for Spock would be my third favorite. And then go back to the first one, which is okay. This one has classic God. That's great. Fantastic. One of the most memorable. I bet it is probably in the top 100 movie quotes of all time. It has to be, right?
Which one? Khan?
Khan! Yeah, just that one scream. It's iconic either way.
He's got the quote about friendship that's probably
there,
dude. Something, you will always be my friend, or something like that.
Yeah, but these guys were really on top of it. Like, the first one was 80, right? And then this one was 82. Search for Spock was 84. Voyage Home 86. Like, they had a production schedule like you would see today. Maybe they added an extra year in there that they wouldn't have needed today, but they got them knocked out. And we did mention that the budget for this was only like $12 million, and it made almost $100 million worldwide. That's insane. I can't even imagine what that translates to today's money. The only gripes I really have about this movie are some of the special effects are awful, and I chalk that up to a lack in budget. Some of the acting is not. I mean, you have some of the best acting, and then some of the worst in the same movie, and it just kind of makes it weird when the two come together.
Okay, Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. I really like this movie. It is complex in a good way. It's not too complex, but it is very complex. They get points for reaching back to the well of the original series and reviving this Khan storyline and bringing back Ricardo Montalban to play him even. Ricardo is an expert at chewing scenery, which he
That
does.
was a must. That was a must. You don't dare do this with someone else in that role.
So that is awesome that they did that. And again, lots of action in this. Great cast. Lots of characters to remember. But this is science fiction. It's not science stupidity. Like you have to like pay attention to this, and I think that's awesome for 1982 to bring something that's like you're used to not really seeing that complex of stories. Like George Lucas story is never as complex as what's going on here. I think so. Props for that, and just lots of great movie moments in this, and for achieving all of this on, as you've mentioned and Laura has mentioned, a terribly low budget. This movie saved, in my opinion, the Star Trek franchise and made it viable. So everything that came after, the movies that followed, Star Trek The Next Generation, I think it all can be tied back to this film being successful and critically well received as well. So with that, here comes my score, and here comes your score.
You see, you're stupid minds. Stupid.
And with Laura's score factored in, of course, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan receives a 92.83 on our patented Cult Filmometer. Dames Marvs, where does that leave us?
Well, Dane Michael, that puts that right after the last blockbuster at 91 and just below Total Recall at 93.5.
Very cool. I like that. Yes, Star Trek II. That's your place on the Cult Filmometer. It's a great score. And we look forward to seeing you all next time for our next review. Please subscribe to Project Nerd shows, and you won't miss an episode of CF3. Live long and prosper, y'all.